Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about CQB. I'm kidding. We're going to talk about canning and jarring, and preserving foods. All right, these are kind of old school skills that have been around forever, but are kind of being lost. And there may be a time in the future when you really want to be able to do this. So joining us today is Kate, and what's your Instagram?
Made Whole Herbs.
Made Whole Herbs. And Kate teaches this for us. She teaches edible and medicinal plants, and she teaches classes on canning and jarring. So I asked her to come in today and just give us an overview on the equipment you need, the reason behind it, and just some tips if this was something you want to get into. So welcome, Kate, and let's talk about why. Why do people can and preserve food?
Okay, so the reason that you'd want to can is a way to preserve your food at home and allow yourself to have food in a jar that's just as fresh when you open it as it was the day that you canned it. Of course, we've got other methods of food preservation at home. You can dehydrate your food, you can ferment your food, you can freeze your food. This is a way that you can store it very easily and compactly and really preserve that taste and flavor.
What's the old school way?
Old school way.
Yeah. What's the oldest kind of? What did they do
Thousands
in
of
like
years
the old
ago?
West? No, like the old West, like 100, 200 years ago. What kind of methods did they use?
You'd
They
be doing a lot of
meat and stuff?
smoking and
Yeah.
dehydrating, and fermenting is probably our oldest form of food preservation. This is what we see in Japan and in Asian countries, where you'd ferment your food, you would store it and seal it and bury it underground, so it's protected from light and heat.
Okay,
So
cool.
that's probably the oldest. But canning is something that's accessible to us and is really affordable to get started in. So why would you want to can as opposed to some of these other methods? We talked about storage, we talked about the convenience, the accessibility. So what canning does is it disrupts your four main agents of food spoilage. So we've got molds, enzymes, yeast, and bacteria that destroy food and cause it to spoil if you just left it sitting out on the counter, right? So canning disrupts all four of these. You've got two different main types of canning. You've got the boiling water bath method, and you've got the pressure canning method. So the thing is that boiling water bath method is appropriate only for high acid foods. So thinking most fruits outside of tomatoes and figs, boiling water bath is appropriate for.
How long is the food good for?
So in theory, indefinitely, right? Ideally, between 2 to 5 years, it should be consumed. But in theory, if you're keeping this food in a cool, dark place, like your root cellar, like we used to have, you could consume this food in several years with no issue.
Okay.
I've actually had people in some of my classes who have consumed a past loved one's, canned food that was down in a root cellar. Had someone in the last class 30 years after that person had canned the food. And it's still good to that day.
So even not preserving for some catastrophe, like if you have an orchard and you have all this fruit, you're like, what am I going to do with this? Just put it in the jars, boil it, and put it in a cooler area. I guess.
Right. Cool and dark. So you're thinking about heat and temperature, or I'm sorry, UV light and temperature being your main issues with deteriorating that food and causing it to spoil in that jar.
Okay.
However, if you're interested in preserving anything other than fruits, if you want to preserve vegetables, meats, eggs, milk, you got to use the pressure canning method. So you know how we talked about there being four main agents of food spoilage: bacteria, yeast, enzymes, and mold. So the temperature of boiling water, 212 degrees, this is going to kill your mold, your yeast, and your enzyme. The acidity in the fruits that you would be using the boiling water bath method for, the acidity negates the growth of bacteria that causes things like botulism that we hear about related to improper canning procedures that then can result in death. So that the high acidity negates that bacteria being a problem. With our low acid foods, boiling water temperature is not going to do it for us. It's not going to kill the bacteria, and there's not enough acid in the food to kill it itself. So we have to increase temperature. It has to be higher than 212 degrees. So how do you do that? Like, We can't really do that on our stovetop with just a pot. The way that you do that, you increase temperature by increasing pressure. You've got a pressurized steam inside this pot that can go up to 250 degrees, depending on the food that you're canning and what's appropriate. So we can increase temperature by increasing pressure and getting pressurized or getting really, really hot steam inside of here that will kill the botulotoxin that's responsible for potentially fatalities with canning. Yeah.
Okay. And so you can do meat, you can do eggs, wow.
Okay, so y'all, this is a Presto pressure canner. So the way that you pressure can with this one is going to be different than other brands, which is why this little instruction manual that comes with your pressure canner is your Bible. And I'm telling you, if you buy one of these new, and I really like Presto, it's $80. You can get it at Walmart. This is so easy to understand. And if you read this entire thing, then you're going to be able to pressure can safely. It takes away all of the mystery and the fear around it. So you can trust that what they include in here is everything that you need to know.
Cool.
Yep.
And who makes this?
This is Presto.
Okay.
Yep.
And it's $80.
It's $80.
So basically, if you already have pots and a stove, this is the only cost with your jars, right? To get
jars,
started.
This stuff is really, really helpful. I could not can without these things. So this is just a funnel where you are putting this on top of your jars, you're pouring the food inside. This is really helpful to prevent any messes from being made, or like any food that's landing up on the rims that could generate bacteria, which we don't want. This is this little jar lifter tongs, so you could like pick your jars up out of your boiling water or out of this really, really hot pot when it's over with. So those are two other essentials in my opinion.
Fairly simple.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
When you know the procedures.
It really is.
And you're safe. So, yeah, cool. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So, tell people where to reach you again, your Instagram.
Yeah, so my Instagram is Made Whole Herbs. That's my website name as well. It's where I put up info on this and wild plant identification and holistic health. So
yeah, and check us out at Fieldcraft Survival. We have edible medicinal plants and canning classes going on, mostly in North Carolina right now. But all right, thank you so much.